Hey, what's up YouTube? Lightsaber Samurai here, back again for another video, and this video is in response to one of my viewers, Lineman13, who commented on a video I did recently, and they asked that I cover more Mech games. They want to see more Mech games, and so I thought I would dig into the old collection and grab a few out, and so without further ado, here's 4 of my favorite Mech games. Let's talk about it. Okay, so the first game on our list is by Time Warner, and this is Zero Divide on the original PlayStation. And in this early 1995 game, it takes place in the future where you are a computer error and it takes place inside a computer system. A bunch of mercenary units have been sent into the system, I believe, to recover you, and the mercenary units were sent by a corporation that's hijacking this computer system. So as the error, it's your job to defeat and delete these programs and crash the system. In this game, you have your choice between, I want to say it's 8 characters, but I think there's 2 unlockable bosses that you can use. Each robot has their own individual fighting style, and it takes place like your standard 2D polygonal fighting game. I thought that it was probably a lot better in its time. Unfortunately, this is a game that did not age very well. The graphics are very basic, although I will say it does look a little better than a lot of games from 1995, those early 3D games, but you know, to today's standards, it doesn't even really have that PlayStation charm to me. I think the game looks pretty ugly and it moves pretty slow too. I found the controls to not be as responsive as I wanted them to be, often taking sometimes between, you know, a tenth to a half of a second sometimes when I would input button combinations, and because of that, I couldn't really get the timing down, but that didn't stop my opponents from pulverizing me and pulling off all of these combos. Forgettable music, actually, I'm not even sure if the game had music. If it does, that's how forgettable the soundtrack is. I can't even remember if the game has music, but if you find this one for cheap and you are a PlayStation collector, that's who I would recommend this for. Someone who is who considers themselves an aficionado like myself. I do like to collect most things PlayStation, and so I thought it was a decent curiosity, and being one of those long box games, I want to say that this was an American launch game or very close to launch, so it was worth picking up. Actually, my brother Aaron of Killer Concepts, he got the game for me, so that's how I acquired it. But I mean, not the best game, but certainly not the worst. If you see it for cheap and you like PlayStation fighting games, I could suggest it to you. I would say go ahead and pick it up. Alright, the next game on the list, and I'm kind of cheating here because I don't have the physical copy, and this is something that I don't really want to make a habit of, but I think it is a game that everybody should experience if they can. As far as Mech games go, one of my favorite is Metal Storm on the NES, and you're seeing it here. This game, this is a game that really pushed the limits graphically for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Some of the things that it's doing, in particular the parallax scrolling, looks fantastic. It's a smooth running game and pretty tough actually. It's one of those one hit and you die games, but it has a really cool unique mechanic where not only can you kind of jump and do your normal platforming thing, but in addition to that, you can also latch to the ceiling and then kind of jump up and down from the ceiling, and you'll have to do that to traverse levels and to defeat and avoid certain enemies in the game. Again, this game is fantastic. I don't have the physical copy again because this game, just for the card alone, I think is hovering around the $130 mark. You can get this game repro, and I want to say someone re-released this game. It was either like Limited Run or Play Asia. Someone re-released this game on the PlayStation 4, so if you can find it there for around the $50-$60 mark, that might be the way to go. As for me, I like the game, but this one's gonna have to be emulated for me for the time being, unless of course I get lucky at a garage sale. And if you do get lucky at a garage sale, definitely pick this game up. If you see it and wanna pay the price of $100 to $130, at least you are getting a fantastic game with that price. I personally can't say it's worth that much, but you definitely aren't buying a crap game for 130 bucks. So if you do see this one and you want to get it, definitely grab it. It's a great addition to your NES library. Going back to the PlayStation now, and this is a game that we had looked at before in my first PlayStation Hidden Gems videos. I'll try to leave a link for that so you can take a look at some of those. But if you want to talk about Mech Games on the PlayStation 1, without a doubt, the best one on the system, and in my opinion, definitely a top 10 greatest games of all time on the PlayStation 1. Yes, I am talking about Omega Boost. This late game by Polyphony Digital came out around 2000. It takes place in the future, of course, and you are a pilot of the Omega Boost. You are traveling back in time, I want to say to the year 1946, to where the world's first computer was developed, and the first artificial intelligence computer was developed, that is, and your rivals, it's a terrorist group that's gone back in time with the hopes of altering the future, and so you have to go intercept and destroy them. This game is fantastic. It plays a lot like a cross between I don't know, Zone of the Enders is what it reminds me of, and we'll take a look at that in a second. But this game is fantastic. Graphics on it are some of the best on the system, and that makes sense. The folks at Polyphony Digital are responsible for games like Gran Turismo 1 and 2 on the system, and those are some of the best looking PlayStation games around. This is a cross between a rail shooter and a kind of like a free roaming shooter. You'll fly around in environments in space. You'll take it down on the ground to the planet. It has a bunch of different environments. It's got a rocking soundtrack that I can't play here for copyright reasons, but it is licensed music from the era, and you'll be jamming out to that while you're watching the full motion video cutscenes, which is another reason why I really like this game. I thought that was so cool that we got FMVs on the PlayStation. Was one of my favorite parts about the PlayStation, was watching those full motion, like live action, bad acting movies in there, just low budget, but I thought they did pretty decent in this. It's got a little bit of 90s cheese in it, but this is a fantastic game, and one that I definitely want to beat someday. So if you see this one, this is still a game that's around the $20 mark. So anybody that likes Mech Games, anybody that likes PlayStation, if you see this one, grab it and ask questions later. Omega Boost. Alright, and the final two games that I wanted to talk about today, we are heading to the PlayStation 3, and this was released by Konami and re-released later by Kojima Productions, by Hideo Kojima and company. This is Zone of the Enders, and this is the Zone of the Enders HD collection on the PlayStation 3, and I think this is the one to get. You can get these on the PlayStation 2, but this adds, of course, some new features. The new coat of paint on this is fantastic. The game's now running 60 frames a second instead of 30 frames a second. He added a very lengthy and very cool anime opening to both games, and these are the Mech games to have on the PlayStation 2 or PlayStation 3 for that matter. In Zone of the Enders, you play as Leo Stenbuck. He is a colonist on, I want to say Calypso is the name of the colony. It's a colony of Jupiter. It's attacked by forces by Baram, and while he's trying to survive the onslaught, he stumbles upon an orbital frame named Jehoti. This is the orbital frame that Baram was sent to capture, but Leo gets there first, and once he gets inside the mech, his objective is to deliver it to the good guys so it can be delivered to Mars. This game is fantastic. The combat system in it is very high flying, very similar to Omega Boost that we just looked at a second ago, except it's more fleshed out. You definitely have more moves at your disposal, and as the game goes on, you can defeat enemies and find more installs to install these modules to give yourself new special weapons and attacks and things like that. Graphics and story are on point. The only knock I have against these games are in the cutscenes, and while the cutscenes looked fine in 2001 on the PlayStation 2, unfortunately they didn't upscale the cutscenes at all. It's still playing in 480i, and they just stretched it out to 16:9, and so the cutscenes in the games look a little blurry, but they're well shot. well directed, and of course well written and voice acted. Moving on to Zone of the Enders, the second runner, you play as Dingo Egret. This is several years later, and it appears that Jehuti was stashed away. While on a mining mission, he recovers Jehuti just before again Baram attacks, trying to intercept the orbital frame. This one is the better of the two games in my opinion. Just a lot of refinement went into this, refinements in the graphics and the controls and the gameplay, being able to grab objects, kind of like pull like support beams off the wall and use that as makeshift weapons, or taking slats of the wall and using that as a shield to block enemy attacks. This game is fantastic. The only really knock I have on both of these games is that they're a bit short, but buying them in this package you get about a good solid 11 hours of gameplay between the both games, and I definitely think it's worth that. Zone of the Enders, the second run, or the HD collection, is going for about $10 now, so definitely if you see it, pick it up. Alright guys, I do believe that's all I got for you, but let's talk about it in the comment section below. Questions, comments, concerns, threats. What is some of your favorite mech games throughout various consoles? This is something I definitely want to take a look at again. As I was going through my collection, I saw a bunch of other mech games, some Gundam Wing stuff I had. The Armored Core series is another one. Again, I took a look at games like Mirakumo and Phantom Crash on the original Xbox. I told you in that video that Phantom Crash had a sequel on the PS2 that I'm on the lookout for, so we'll definitely have to take a look at these again. But what are some of your choices for favorite mech games? And we will definitely look at them in the future if I can. But if you like this content, please go ahead and give me a like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. You'll be glad you did. I do believe that's all I got for you. Lightsaber Samurai out. Peace.